Today I thought we would make some fake fudge with some little walnuts in it. So the first thing we'll start with is the walnuts because we need to bake those before we can do the rest of it. So I'm using translucent clay. This is a Sculpey brand. And this just has like a little bit of a see-through look to it. And so it's perfect to make the little walnuts with. So just condition your clay. And then I'm going to make this in a few different pieces, a few different ways. So one, I'm just going to kind of roll, and then I'm going to just kind of, I don't want this to be like a perfectly round shape. So I'm just going to kind of press it and make it different thicknesses in different spots. Then I'm going to take a couple more pieces, and actually I'm going to take 3 more pieces and I'm going to roll those out too. So I'm going to stick those 2 pieces together, and I want to press them together so there's not like a big space. And then I'll do the same thing, roll out another one. And just add that on wherever you want. Basically, we're just trying to make like different shapes of the nuts so they don't look too uniform. So just press those together, make sure they're all nice and stuck. And then you're gonna need to bake these. It shouldn't take more than like maybe 3 minutes or so to bake something this small, but follow your package directions, whatever it says. So now for the fudge, I'm going to use my Crayola air dry clay. So just condition it up. So roll it into a ball and then just flatten it out a little bit. Decide how thick you want your fudge to be. And then take your rolling pin and just flatten it out that way. You want the top and the bottom to be really smooth because that's the way fudge looks. So I'm going with about that thick. And now I'm just going to take my clay blade and I'm going to cut it into squares. So I'm just cutting the edges off so that I can get one big square, and then I'll cut it into some smaller pieces. Okay, so I have my 4 pieces of fudge here. So I want these corners and stuff to stay really sharp. I mean, that's basically what fudge looks like. Now, a couple of things that you can do here. Sometimes across the top, you know, when you pour the fudge in before it's set up, you take a spatula and kind of smooth it down in there. So you could make some lines on the top using like a popsicle stick or whatever you want to use, just to kind of get that kind of look there. And then another thing is on the sides, sometimes you'll see like some little holes. So you can use a toothpick and make like little holes just kind of randomly. It doesn't need to be a lot of holes. It's just sometimes that's how it is. There might be like a little crack coming off as well. But otherwise, the texture on the side is pretty smooth. So like these little cracks that are in my clay actually look like what it should look like. So I can just add a little bit more to it, or you could just leave it how it is. So just do all the sides, whatever you want to do as far as the way that it looks. Okay, so normally when we use the air dry clay, I tell you guys to let it dry and then paint it, but for this project we're going to paint it while it's wet. The thing is though, if you touch a spot with paint on it while the clay is still wet, the paint will just come right off on your fingers. So you're going to have to leave it flat on your surface and just paint around that way. Otherwise, you're going to end up messing it up. I forgot one thing that I wanted to do here. I wanted to make one look like it has a bite taken out of it. So I'm just going to cut a little chunk out. And then for the teeth marks, I'm going to use the end of a paintbrush. And I'm going to kind of roll it so that it will be, so the teeth will be big enough. And then I'm going to use a little bit smaller paintbrush on the bottom. So I want to leave like a little line in between where they meet here in the middle. And then it also gets some like striations in this. Where the teeth like drag into the fudge. So now for my color, you can make this a lot of different colors because fudge is like so many different colors. But for mine, I'm going to use melted chocolate, and then I'm going to add some territorial beige to it just to lighten it up a little bit, because this air dried clay makes things look a little bit darker. So I don't want to use just the melted chocolate. I feel like it's going to look a little bit too dark for what I want. But, you know, like I said, fudge can be a lot of different colors. So you just use the color that you like the best. The other thing I want to add to this is some gloss Mod Podge, because I want my fudge to be a little bit glossy, not super glossy. So I don't want to put this on after the fact, or it's going to be too much gloss. But if I add it to the paint, it will give it just enough glossiness to give it that realistic look. So I would say do about half paint and half Mod Podge. And this is the gloss Mod Podge, if I didn't say that already. So now just place your fudge where you want it and make sure that you don't have to pick it up, so you don't get the, so your fingers don't take the paint off. And you may have to do 2 coats of this. You'll just have to see how yours turns out. If it has enough shine, and if the color covers completely. So now I'll put those aside to dry. Okay, so I got my little polymer clay canes that I made. So I'm going to take my clay blade and I'm going to cut these into little chunks. So see there, this one kind of has that shape to it. Now I didn't press my pieces together enough, so they're kind of falling apart, but that's okay because I can use these other pieces in there as well. But you do want to make sure you press those pieces together so that you get some different shapes going. You don't want them all to just be like singular pieces like that. And then I have this one that I just made all crazy, so I'm just going to cut that one up too. Using both of these different kinds is just going to give me a nice variation, having different looking pieces in there so that they're not all just the same, because that is not going to look realistic if they all look the same. So after your paint has had a chance to dry a little bit, then you can go ahead and put the nuts into your fudge. So mine are still pretty wet, and like I said, when you touch on the sides of these, it's gonna remove the paint most likely. So just be aware that you may have to go back and touch up your paint. So I'm just going to press these in to random spots. Now I missed some spots here with my paint. But you can always go back and touch up. So what we're going to do is just take a piece and press it in. Now you want it to be completely flush with the fudge, so that it looks like it's embedded in there. You don't want it sticking out or it's not going to look realistic. So you just do that on all the sides, however you want, however many nuts you want in there. Or if you don't want the nuts, you can just leave them plain. So that's all there is to it. Then you just let them dry completely and then they're all set. If you find, because you know it is hard to not mess up the paint, you can go back and touch up. You know, you'll probably need to go back and touch up your paint after the clay has a chance to dry, but it's a lot easier to paint the fudge first so you can press the nuts in there. You don't have to try to paint around the nuts. Like that would be a lot more difficult. You can do it that way, but it doesn't seem like that much fun to me. Hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you want to learn more cool fake bakes and what's on my channel is not enough for you, you can join my VIP membership, and we do 4 more tutorials in there every month, and I go a bit more in depth as far as like different ways that you can make things, or we make multiple things that go together like on a plate or a place setting. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, check the description. There will be a link there for you, and also on the end screen. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.